Hello everyone and welcome to Apprenticemakers Live. This is the first session that we've done on insurance industries, but it's actually the third Apprenticemakers Live that we've done. My name is Sophie Hardwick and I'm leading on all the Apprenticemakers activity. And the reason we've set up these webinars is to help businesses share their expertise with each other. We've invited two speakers to join us today, and unfortunately Adam won't be joining us because he's been dragged away due to unforeseen circumstances, but I'm very excited by the fact that we have managed to encourage Daniel Pedley to get involved at short notice. Daniel is actually involved in the insurance industry's trailblazer and is fantastically knowledgeable about that area. So Daniel will, at quite short notice, is going to give us a heads up on that. If you don't know what a trailblazer is, don't worry about it, because hopefully after Daniel's spoken, we'll get a better idea of what exactly is happening with trailblazers and how businesses, particularly small businesses, can get involved. Before we get cracking, I'm going to try something, because often in the Apprenticemakers live webinars, it's been quite handy to do the odd poll here and there. And so to get people in the mood for these polls, I'm going to do our first poll now. And what I'm going to do is put a question on the screen, and you need to answer it, and then I'll share the results with you. So we'll just test the technology, see if everyone's happy with how it all works. If you've got any questions at all throughout the process of Apprenticemakers Live, feel free to go into your question panel, which is hopefully on your little webinar tool, and send a question to me. And if it's the right point in the webinar, I'll try and address it right there and then, and if not, we'll save it to an appropriate pause. Also, as people are speaking, it's really handy to jot down questions as you go along. Feel free to submit them there. And then, as I said, when there's a pause, we'll find a time to answer them. So anyway, without further ado, here's the first poll, just to get people in the frame of mind for how polls work. There we go, really fantastic, all about apprenticeships. Let's see how the results are coming. Results, all right, okay, we've got 50%, 63% voted. 100% voted, so I think I'm ready to share the results. There we go, that's the results of that one. So isn't it reassuring that even though we're in the midst of September, that there's still a bit of sunshine going on somewhere, and people are still mentioning sunglasses, so we're clinging on for dear life there with that one. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, there might be the odd poll going on as we go through. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk through a bit about what Apprenticemakers is all about. Not all of you will be familiar with Apprenticemakers, so I thought it might be useful to talk through what Apprenticemakers is all about, how it came about, and this will take about 5 or 10 minutes of time. And so feel free to jot down questions, and of course I'll be available to contact afterwards to chat through if anyone's got any specific things that they want to chat through about it. So as I said, this is the first webinar that's about the insurance industries, but we've had two previously. We did one on engineering and manufacturing, and we did one on the hairdressing and beauty business. And we've got two more planned. We've got one that's coming up in the hospitality industry and one that's coming up in creative and cultural industries. We would love to do these webinars on lots and lots of different sectors. If you operate in a sector that hasn't been covered so far and you'd like to get involved, then please contact me, because I'm very keen to work in partnership and work with people to get them involved. Also, I know there's a couple of training organisations that are signed up today. I'm equally happy to talk to you about involvement. Perhaps you can think of a speaker in a sector that you operate in that would be great to talk about their experience of apprenticeships. So I'm really happy to hear from you and talk through how we can make them happen. At the moment, we've got some on the cards in the care sector, in health and fitness, and the design industry. we're not being particularly scientific about how we're choosing the sectors. We're simply working with those people that come to us saying that these would be great, or working with quite active apprentice makers in the apprentice makers community. So very open to ideas. So why are we running them? Okay, well, Apprentice Makers was set up as a result of something called the Holt Review, which was drafted by someone called Jason Holtz, who's the apprenticeship ambassador for small businesses. He wrote a report that was all about the accessibility of apprenticeships to small businesses, and essentially it was how can we encourage more small businesses to take on apprenticeships. And one of the recommendations he made in that report was that it's really handy for small businesses to learn from each other in this respect. So it's as simple as plumbing company in one town speaking to a plumbing company in the town next door and saying, listen, how did you go about it? How did it work for you? And learning from another business the benefits and the challenges of taking on apprentices. And that's why we've run these today, because it's learning from a business exactly what worked for them, why it was great, why it's really helped grow their business, but also where were the pain elements in it, how can it kind of best be brought into a business without having too much of an impact on time and financially as well. And so Apprentice Makers is like that, but on a larger scale. So if you sign up for Apprentice Makers, you'll join a community. This is me here. And I'm very kindly not include other people's photos in this, but we've got lots of small businesses signed up and larger businesses as well. Once you're in the community, you can search by someone who's either taken on an apprentice or wants to take on an apprentice, and then you can search by different sectors as well. You can also search by location and by role in the business, because sometimes, sometimes a larger business, it might be an HR manager that's got a responsibility for apprenticeships, whereas in a smaller business it might be the MD. So there's lots of different ways you can filter the results according to the kind of things you're interested in. And just because a plumbing business might be interested in talking to a plumbing business, that might not be the only kind of business they could learn from. It could be they could learn from a hairdresser up the road, because some of the challenges associated with taking on apprentices are common to all businesses, irrespective of sector. This is a map view, which, as you see here, when you go onto the community, you can go and look at the map view and you can see the businesses that have signed up in your region. This was a screenshot from a couple of months ago now, so it's looking more populated now. And you can home in on your region and you can find businesses to connect with. If a regional connection is important to you, it could be that you would, you find it equally useful speaking to a similar business at the other end of the country. There's no barriers to it. There's also lots of different resources. So there's tons of case studies of small businesses that have taken on apprenticeships. And as you'll see here, the two speakers that we've got lined up for today, Lara and Adam, have also had case studies written about them, and these are live on the Apprentice Makers site now. So if after the webinar you want to find out more, go to the case study section and you'll see theirs there. We've got I think we've got actually about 24 case studies on Apprentice Makers now, and we're always keen to find out more. So if you're a small business that would like to share your story, please get in touch. We'll write a case study for on your business. Equally, if you're a training provider and you work with loads of businesses and you think they've got a great story to tell, let us know about it. We don't kind of actively promote training organisations on it, but we do refer to the name of the training organisation that helped them through the process. And, in the case study, often businesses will say, I work with X college or X training organisation. They were super helpful and really helped me through the process. And I think that's a good thing. It's a good piece of knowledge to pass on, particularly to another business in your sector or in your region, to know that that they had a positive experience. So we're happy to share that on. In terms of what we are trying to get out of it as apprentice makers, our main criteria, our only criteria, is that we want more small businesses to feel confident and able to take on apprentices, and so we're giving them the tools and the knowledge to help them do that. Okay, so in a nutshell then, what Apprenticemakers is about making connections with other people in your sector. All of these people that you see pictured here are involved in Apprenticemakers. These are real businesses that are busy and have lots of demands on their time, and this is them with their apprentices. And every business that we've interviewed for Apprenticemakers, it's always been quite humbling, the positive impact that it's had on the business, the way the business owners feel really passionately about the fact that they've given a young person an opportunity to develop a career in their business. And so, there's lots of inspiration on there from the case studies and from the blog, but from the people, mainly, from the people themselves. So making connections, about sharing best practice, about mentoring and helping other businesses consider apprenticeships. And that can be, quite detailed mentoring if that's what a business wants to do, or quite light mentoring in terms of, hey, let me tell you how it worked for me. It's about asking questions. There's a forum on Apprenticemakers where people can ask questions and other businesses can answer. It's potentially about working together. Apprenticemakers is quite new, but there are opportunities in bringing a community of businesses together to try and solve some of the shared challenges. So sometimes it can be quite handy for businesses in the same sector to work together to perhaps go and speak to a local school about their sector, or to a local college. Also, with more activity going on at the moment with Trailblazers, there's an opportunity for businesses to connect with other businesses in the sector to work together on those kind of activities. So we'll hopefully find out more about Daniel later, about how businesses can get involved in that, and what the mileage is in working together, and what benefits that can bring them as a business. And also kind of solving shared challenges, which I guess I've touched on, with trying to raise the profile of job opportunities in your region by going to talk to young people en masse, because often businesses working together can have more of a voice in that area. Okay, I think that's all I've got to cover on Apprenticemakers. As I said, please send me any questions that you have on it. I'd like to introduce now Lara Meller. Lara's been hugely supportive of Apprenticemakers and is herself a great champion for apprentices. She also began her career as an apprentice, so she's a fantastic advert for apprentices as well, because she's someone that's gone on to have great success in her career. Their business took on their first apprentice in January. Is that right? Can you hear me, Lara?
Yes, I can. Yes, that's right.
Okay. They took on their first apprentice in January, and recruiting an apprentice for their business, if I'm right, has been great, not just for the apprentice, but also for other people in the team as well, because it's enabled them to go and try different roles in the business and develop their own careers. It's a great bit of space, I guess, for other people in the business to step up and start thinking about their career plans as well. And now I think that a lot of the future of the business is now working more with apprenticeships and understanding how it can grow the business as a whole. So I'm going to hand over to Lara. Are you ready to go, Lara? We're going to try something new. I'm going to give Lara the ownership of the keyboard and mouse. So hopefully this will all work. Any problems, and we might have a bit fiddling, but I think we're good to go.
Thank you.
Does that work for you, Lara?
Can't seem to get it forward.
Can you move the slides?
No, it's not allowing me to take control, I believe.
Okay, why don't I try it? Okay.
Okay.
Right, but I'll do that one. That's fine. Okay, so over to you, Lara.
So thank you, Sophie, for your lovely introduction. I'd like to explain a bit more about PMA, our business, and why apprenticeships are right for us to start with. So last year, actually almost a year ago this week, I sat down with our managing director to talk about the future of our business and how we saw it evolving. Most businesses don't want to stand still, and they need a plan for growth. We're a service provider, we're an investigation company, so we don't actually control our work volumes. All we have available to us is to be able to control the quality of our product. So to try and respond to that challenge is difficult in terms of recruitment generally, and we saw an opportunity to engage with the National Apprenticeship Scheme to bring new talent into the business, which should then provide opportunity for the other members of our team to progress. So we saw it really as investing in the successes of the future. We are looking effectively over the next 5 to 10 years for the apprentices that come to the business to work their way through up to management level, subject to their own aspirations. So apprenticeships have actually allowed us to remain agile and actually respond to work volumes as they've increased. So we started the apprenticeship programme in January, where the research element actually started at the end of September last year and took a full 3 months to complete before we commenced. Now actually as a business we can support all of our team to achieve professional qualifications by our CII apprenticeships framework, which it was a bonus for me to find out is available to any member of staff who doesn't have a level 2 qualification. So actually through our research we've now a way of developing our existing staff as well as bringing new talent in. As Sophie mentioned, I was an apprentice myself. My first apprenticeship was as an office junior in a very small law firm in a place called Bracknell, and that opportunity is what led me into personal injury. So without that opportunity I probably wouldn't be sat here today talking to you, and it's nice to be able to then hand that down to the next generation, future talent. So why the apprenticeship reach? There's the ability to mould the talent that we bring into the business to our core values and our approach. So we can use our staff, who are very experienced, as mentors in developing their training skills, while obviously providing support to the apprentice. And we obviously provide professional qualification route. So the way that the apprenticeship framework works for us is after level 1, level 2 becomes a CII apprenticeship, and that means that all of our apprentices will have professional qualifications to support them throughout their careers should they choose to stay in the insurance world. It also does give the ability to recruit swiftly. You recruit direct generally with an apprenticeship, so you don't need to engage with agencies, and there are many ways to recruit, but the one that we found most useful recently has been the Job Centre Plus website through the Universal Job Match service, and it enables us to react quickly to changing work volumes, and we can then very quickly get the right candidates in and set the ball rolling again on the next. There have been challenges along the way. We have to balance the need to use our existing team to provide the training, supported by our learning partner, who have been fantastic, but that has to be balanced alongside the need to continue to provide a level of service to our clients. But we have been able to progress apprentices through the framework rapidly, so we can meet our business needs, and for us that's the quid pro quo. So one of the challenges from the business was, would the significant time investment pay dividends? I can honestly say for us it has, although there is a significant level of commitment needed. And I think part of the thing is actually knowing where to start. My own apprenticeship was in 1996, so I had to say my knowledge was not current. And there is a lot of information available, and things like Apprenticemakers do make it much more easily accessible, and I wish it had been around in September last year for me to link into then. So the solutions, we did the research and we did do our homework, and we developed our apprenticeship goals and our framework before we even chose a learning provider, let alone interviewed anyone for a potential post. On the National Apprenticeship Service website, all the learning providers are listed, and they have feedback and ratings from employers and from apprentices. We actually selected our learning provider because they have the highest scores in our chosen qualification route from the apprentices, because we felt it was more important for the apprentice to be engaged with the learning provider than necessarily the employer to have that relationship, and that's been borne out through the experience we've had over the last 9 months. We have to remember whose journey it is. We're just actually facilitating a qualification for an apprentice and their training. It is their journey. All of our staff, from the MD, myself, right through our claims handling team, right down to the apprentice themselves, have apprenticeships within their core objectives. So they are all targeted in individual ways and collectively to ensure that the CMA Academy we now have is successful. We knew that we had to build our future, but we needed to invest in the right team. So we need to ensure that we can have support across the business for the apprentice while they undergo their on-the-job training and their qualifications so that they can achieve their potential. There have been a few humps in the road, and advertising an apprenticeship can be more complex than one would think. We don't have the luxury of a HR department here, and even though I did do research into the ways that we could seek to advertise, we did find the process to be a little bit tricky, although now we've done it once, an approved employer and universal job match. So all of our advertisements now don't need approval and will go live straight away for us. So it was worth the effort. And we also have to ensure that the candidates are the right fit for the business and also that we're right for them. An apprenticeship is a two-way thing. There needs to be commitment from employer and employee. And also we needed to know how we would accelerate development when there was a business need to do so. But we do have plans in place for that. And that means that from day one, when apprentices come in, they are trained in certain core tasks so that they can provide assistance across the team as and when we have an issue in terms of resource, which allows us to then start looking at, do we need more apprentices in the academy now, next month, in 3 months, or do we now need to look outside of that and go into the market and look for someone experienced to come into the business? Effectively, it provides breathing space to allow us to grow steadily and in a managed way. And also projecting the future. There is a lot of time and effort involved. The financial investment actually is minimal, but if you calculate the amount of time and effort expended by your existing team and quantify it, it's not. So apprenticeships may not be, on the face of it, expensive, but you need to understand your own business and make sure that the effort invested in every hire counts. A great lesson we've learned is that we've developed a passion for learning in the business, and on the back of that, it's meant that everybody has had the opportunity to become involved in that development framework and in the training plan and in delivering the training. So the time we spent planning and developing the framework has been worthwhile because it has given structure and clarity across the business. And the apprentices will run our business of the future, and they're the force to drive us forward. So since we first brought our apprentice into the business in January, we've been able to have 2 internal promotions directly on the back of 1 apprentice coming into the business. One of our handlers has accepted a secondment to become our technical claims manager, which is now a confirmed post. And one of our administration team has actually come over to our claims handling area and enhanced her career. And she's now accepted a permanent move over from the administration team, which leads us on to my day tomorrow. I have back-to-back apprenticeship interviews ready to bring the next 2 into our academy. There is a huge amount of satisfaction when you hear and see the development of the talent in your business, and you can feel it and see it every day. And that's something that all of the staff here have seen and buy into, and it's been great for us. CMA has been established 20 years this year. We do have a strong team, and we knew we had that, but the benefits of apprenticeship literally together everyone achieves more. And it's made us all up our games. We've all had to ensure that we're creating opportunities for growth in the business, because we all understand that that brings on the succession for the future. It's also given us a bank of talent so that we can drive the business forward. Effectively, we get to pick the best of the best, and we accelerate them while supporting all of our apprentices to achieve their potential. And there's opportunities for advancement for everybody within the business, underpinned by the apprenticeship programme. So internal promotion is now the norm in CMA, and will remain so, because we know who we have in our team, where their next role sits, and what the plan is and how we execute it. And that's been invaluable.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Laura. And it's really interesting to see how you've gone through the process, and it's been quite a thorough process, quite a thought-through process. It's not really a knee-jerk thing, is it, that you decide, right, we need a new member of staff quick. It's been very kind of considered, and researching who's going to be the best training organisation, and thinking about the role and how that's going to have an impact on everyone else in your business. So that's obviously taken quite a lot of effort, but it's been worthwhile. It's paid off.
Definitely, it's given all the staff here a framework for progression, not just our apprentice. So that work we actually did, we've evolved further, and so we now have a framework for all of our roles, not just the apprenticeship ones.
Yeah.
And all the staff feel the benefit.
Yes, totally. I'd like to invite people to ask Lara questions, but whilst we're doing that, I'm just going to put a quick poll out here about what people have felt to be the biggest hurdles in the process, because then I'd be very interested to see how Lara dealt with some of those hurdles. So I'm going to put this poll live and see where that leads us in terms of questions for Lara. So finding the right training organisation, finding the right candidate, finding the time, well, that's familiar with small businesses and one I'm familiar with too, and getting the rest of the business on board, and the cost of recruiting and employment. Just wait for a couple more votes to come in. Okay. I'm going to close, oh no, just have one last minute poll. I'm going to close the poll now. Any more for any more? No. And share the results with everyone. And so just based on these results, finding the time. Lara, how did you find the time? Why did you choose to stop all the millions of things that you had going on in your business and find the time to do this?
Because it needed to be done. Once you buy into having an apprenticeship programme in your business, you have to make the time. You have to be prepared to put the effort in. I was very fortunate that our managing director has been fully supportive of the process, and all of the team here assisted. So it's not something I did by myself. Team effort. Can we find out about this? What's the situation with that? And it's all about delegating up and down within a small business, particularly, just to make it happen. If you're not committed to putting the time in, it probably isn't the right thing, because it doesn't stop at the end of the research. It goes on. And we have another journey to go on within our organisation. We want to become CII accredited for our academy. So we now have to develop some of our staff to be CII accredited trainers in order to have that accreditation. But we believe in the process, and we're prepared to take that in terms of finance and time to take it to another level.
Okay. And the second thing that's come out on the poll, and it's actually aligned to one of the questions that's come in, is how do you choose a candidate when often their qualifications aren't relevant? So often when you're recruiting someone at quite a young age, it might not necessarily be that they've got an academic background for you to be able to select them on. So how do you choose based on how do you choose someone that you think is going to be right for your business?
The way we did it is we looked at interview process and decided it wasn't appropriate for an apprenticeship interview. So we started again. And what we did is quite a practical interview process. So we set up some slides with some tasks, quite interactive, in our boardroom as part of the interview process. Just have a look and give a few tasks to the apprentice to see where their IT skills are, how they would reply to an email. We'll do queue calls with them, so we'll have someone call in the conference room phone, we'll answer it just as they would and try and deal with quite a general query, just to get a feel for who they are and whether we believe that they have the right things in them in order for us to develop them on. So an apprenticeship interview from our perspective is very much practical and soft skills orientated rather than technical and qualification orientated. And I have to confess, I don't look at exam results. I talk to the candidate before they come in. If they impress me on the phone, they get an interview.
Yeah, what a great thing. I mean, because often some of the best apprentices can be missed if you're just going on, GCSE results alone. And it's look, time and time again when I'm talking to small businesses, it's about that kind of keenness and willingness to learn and willingness to get stuck into the business and commit, and then they get real loyalty to the business. And that can be quite heartwarming. It's a different kind of candidate. It's somebody that's going to come and learn how your business works and have the aptitude to then be able to develop whilst they're there. So it's quite reassuring to hear that. One of the things that when we interviewed someone recently, one of the businesses, it's actually a wheelwright, and their case study is on Apprenticemakers, and it's a business that's been going for something like 700 years. And they've taken on a new apprentice recently, and he said something like, we didn't choose him, he chose us, basically because the person that came along was just so keen and didn't want to take no for an answer, wanted that job, wanted to work in that business. And, how can you turn them down if they're that keen and enthusiastic? So that's great. I've just got a question that's come in for you, Lara. And it's from Donna Jarvis, who's from a training provider. She says, as a training provider, this type of event is great for us, as I'm amazed at how many businesses are not aware of the funding that's out there, not just for 16 to 18-year-olds, but all ages. Lara, how would you suggest we reach businesses with this message? That's really putting you on the spot there, isn't it? Have you got any thoughts?
No, that's fine. It's something that I wasn't aware of, as I said earlier. Until we actually started doing our research, we didn't understand there was an additional benefit to our business for all of our staff. And I do think the message needs to be out there, that there is funding out there. Vocational qualifications are just as valuable, if not more valuable, in my view, than a degree. And we have people going off to university at 18, incurring huge student loans. An apprentice doesn't incur any cost for themselves. The employer bears it. The employer bears the training costs with support from the government, which can be accessed. I can't speak for our financial controller, but I know she did have some challenges around accessing the funding once we went live, and we've learnt lessons from that as well in terms of what needs to be completed and where it goes for the future. But it would be good to have much more information available. It tends to get, in my view, a bit lost alongside all the other grants and loan schemes that are on the business skills website, and it probably does need its own home.
Yeah.
Possibly on Apprenticemakers.
Well, I mean, the role of Apprenticemakers I see is small businesses banging the drum themselves, because I don't know how other small businesses on this webinar feel, but if I'm looking to do something in our business and I need to understand how to do it, I learn so much more from another business that's been through the process. And I think that word of mouth, that learning from a peer, is incredibly valuable. And I think training organisations can help mobilise their businesses to talk about it. If it's working really well for their businesses, then drop it into the conversation next time you're out and about in a networking event. Let them try and get some kind of regional PR for them, and we're really keen to support with that. So training organisations are working with businesses that have got a bit of PR in the local in the local paper, let us know about it. We'll tweet it and help spread the word. I think the more visibility that apprenticeships gets amongst the small business community, the more that message will start to get in that this is an option that could really help grow their business, but also help them consider the future of their business with things like succession plans and things like that. So we're very happy to help create Apprentice Makers to help bang the drum, essentially. Just one last question that's come in, which is around getting the business on board. Now, I know that some small businesses, particularly if they've got staff that have been in the business for a long time, that are very sort of secure in their role and are very practiced in their skills, it can be quite hard to get those people engaged with apprenticeships. Is that anything that you've experienced? Do you find that your existing staff are happy to pass on their skills, or are they protective of them?
No, they haven't been at all protective, but I think that's been more around our communication piece. So we did run internal communication sessions as part of the research process to talk to the staff about what we wanted to do.
Right.
So we actually had them all engaged before the apprentice came in.
What a good idea. So you kind of said this is what's going to happen and this is how you can get involved, and got them bought into it before you started off with the apprenticeship.
Yeah, we needed to know that we had buy-in from the team before we did it, because it wouldn't have been right to bring an apprentice into a situation where we didn't have that traction. Yeah. I know that that on the whole, the businesses we've spoken to have found it really easy to get their team on board, because the team have been, quite proud about the skills they've got and been really keen to help, someone who's just starting out. But on a couple of occasions, people we've interviewed have been said that it's been sometimes harder to get some of the more mature folk on board because they, are worried that they're being replaced or something like that. But that's something that I guess that businesses can deal with by reassuring them, getting them on board, saying your skills are really important, and this is an opportunity for you to kind of to work on other things as well, for you to develop your own career. So I think there are ways around it, and it sounds like your business did that really well. And we followed through on the comments. The people in the administration area of our business have all been promoted since our apprentice joined the business. They have all moved forward.
What a brilliant message that has happened, because that's an opportunity, isn't it? If they get someone in that's junior, that they can actually move on and do other things.
Yeah, and that's been invaluable for us. It's made us stronger as a business. We actually need less experienced resource because we've been able to put tasks where they belong.
Yeah.
And that was a huge piece of work, which we did about 4 months after the apprenticeship started.
Right.
And it's still ongoing, and it will never stop.
Yeah. It's an excellent example. Okay, well, thanks very much for your time in speaking today, and some more questions may come in before the end of the webinar, but I think we're going to move on now to Daniel, who's going to give us an insight into what's happening with the Trailblazers. Now, if anyone's got any questions, feel free to, as you may have done previously, just to send them over to me. And this is going to be really interesting. I don't know much about Trailblazers. I know that many sectors are working on them at the moment, and I know that there's teams of businesses involved in them. But when it comes to the insurance industry's Trailblazers, this is all new to me. So I'm really grateful that Daniel's taken the time to let us know a bit more about them. So can you hear me, Daniel? Hang on, I may not.
Yes, I can. Yes.
You can. You're there. Great. It's all working.
Yes.
Okay, so over to you.
Right. So, hello everybody, and it was good to hear Lara's story. That was a really positive story there. On the question of Trailblazers, insurance is or was one of the first few sectors to get involved in the government's new Trailblazer initiative. And what I shall do is just give you a little bit of background as to where this has come from. I don't know whether you're aware that there was a review of apprenticeships in England, and this is England only, the review was by Doug Richard, who I don't know whether you can remember, was in the very first series of Dragon's Den, and he looked at apprenticeships and made a whole raft of recommendations, but basically the tone of it was to have employers at the centre of the design of new apprenticeship standards, just to make sure that they're more fit for purpose rather than the former skills council model of developing apprenticeship standards. Now, insurance, as I say, was one of the pioneers of this, and the way that Trailblazers work is that a need is identified by a group of employers within a sector, and there was a meeting way back in February where a whole host of insurance firms got together and said, right, we need to get involved. What are we looking to achieve? And it was decided there that an introductory apprenticeship, sort of entry-level apprenticeship, would be designed that will eventually replace some of the apprenticeships that are out there now. Their timelines are quite elongated, so you don't need to worry about that yet. And this group, originally it was just a number of firms who have worked together on HR-related things in the past, but from there, we as a CII were then able to go out to our membership and say, right, this is open to anybody, whatever your size. You don't need to be a global insurer with offices all over the world to get involved. You could be a two-man band on some high street somewhere. It's open to everybody. Now, obviously, the bigger companies have dedicated resource to get involved in this kind of thing, and so certain firms may have thought, time-wise, it might be a bit of an ask for us to take part. Although they've only met 4 or 5 times in the flesh, so it's not a huge time commitment. It's all being based in London, so there will be travel, etc. So in order to make sure that everybody within the sector can get involved, once the initial draft standard was created for this entry-level position, which is it's just insurance technician. Once that was created by the group, it was then put out through our membership for comment, and we did get quite a good response rate from members, and primarily as well, it was smaller firms who couldn't necessarily commit to getting involved in the meetings, but they certainly wanted to have their voice heard. And so, jumping around a bit, going back to the process of creating the standards, this group of employers look at what they've really gone back to basics and stripped back and looked at what fundamentally they want out of an apprenticeship. So what elements need to be covered, what skills people need to come out with at the end of it, what professional qualifications are involved, and that's where the CII comes in, and also how the whole standard is examined at the end of the process. That then, as I say, there was a draft that was put out to the market to comment on. Those comments were then played back into the standard, and that was then submitted to ministers in June, I think it was, for sign-off, and on the 21st of August this year, the draft standard was approved by ministers, and so the hard work is now underway on the really detailed assessment framework, and this is quite timely, today's webinar, in that downstairs from my desk the group is actually meeting and hammering out the final stages of that. So although this particular strand of the Trailblazer is coming to an end, and this, once BIS have signed off, the Department for Business Innovation and Skills has signed off the detailed assessment plan, and this is ready to go out into the field at some point beginning of next year, the process doesn't end in that employers will then start thinking about what other apprenticeships they want to develop. So it's not that we've just developed this entry-level apprenticeship and that's it. This is a level 3 apprenticeship, so there is scope to create level 4 apprenticeships, etc. And this one has been quite generic purposefully because it's the first one. It's a case of getting the process right and sort of feeling our way with the process. In future, there's certainly scope for more, I suppose, more niche apprenticeship lines. So we could have something on underwriting, something on claims handling, broking, etc. There's scope basically to do whatever we want within reason, as long as there is a call for it within the market. So there is certainly scope there to create new things in future. And if there are any of you who want to get involved either with the group going forward or just in inputting on draft standards, then there certainly will be opportunities for that in the future. I think for now that's probably enough. I don't want to sort of go into far too much detail, but we do have, and as the screen shows, we do have a guide for employers on the Trailblazer process, and it covers a lot of what I've said today. And we also have, which has been proved to be very useful and very popular with employers, a guide to getting started for employers. And again, it's not just aimed at big firms. It makes sure that it caters for small firms as well, and it does have some of the details on funding, what funding's available at what levels, though that is all going to change, as is often the way. You will find once you get involved in apprenticeships, things tend to change quite often, but it is all up to date at this moment in time, and as I say, lots of employers have found it useful so far.
That's great. Thank you so much, Daniel. If anyone's got any questions, if they can submit them to the question panel. I've got a question, and it's probably just taking it straight back to basics because I'm thinking about it from a small business perspective. So if I'm a small business and I'm thinking of taking on an apprentice, where should I start? Because should I just go through the normal process and then perhaps put them through a qualification which is possibly out of date in a couple of years, or do I try and get involved in Trailblazers and therefore be one of the first organisations to use the new qualification framework to put my apprentice through? How do I make that decision?
I think at this point in time, definitely go for the existing frameworks. They will be running up until, I think it's the end of 2015-16.
Right.
I think it's the end of 2015, and so there will be a point where there'll be a dual system where you've got the old system and the new system. Okay. But as it stands now, the current apprenticeships are fine, and they don't go out of date in that especially the professional qualification element, the CII bits, which a lot of employers are most keen on because they're transferable and they do carry a lot of weight within the sector, that they don't change. So some of the bits and pieces around the apprenticeship might alter slightly, though not wanting to give too many secrets away, the one that's been designed it has a lot of the elements of the current system, so it's not totally different. So if you now, after this, have a burning desire to set an apprentice over the next couple of months, I'd certainly get in touch with us at the CII. We can then put you in touch with providers who can help you access funding, develop a program that works for you, and so we can certainly help with that.
Okay. Great. And so I think we'll just move on. I know that people will have questions for Daniel because it is quite a kind of, it's sort of something that it's on people's radar, but they're not quite sure how to deal with it until they kind of get stuck in, I guess. I've put Daniel's contact details on the screen. If you want to drop him a line, I'm sure he'll be very happy to hear from you. I'll also be sending this information and the slides from today's presentation to all the delegates as well. So you will get a copy of everything today if you've got any questions. And so thanks again, Daniel, for joining us today, particularly at short notice. That's been fantastic. Okay, well, at this point we were going to hand over to Adam, but as I said, Adam has, as is the nature of these kind of roles in businesses, he's been called away for some urgent work that he has to do. I'm going to just talk through a couple of significant factors on Grove and Dean's apprenticeship activity, and then I'll open the floor for any last minute questions and we'll close. But just on Grove and Dean. So I've interviewed Grove and Dean a couple of times now, once for the Apprenticemakers website so that we could have a case study on there, and also because Apprenticemakers has helped develop a guide to apprenticeships for small businesses, which will be going on Apprenticemakers soon. And so we interviewed both Grove and Dean and Havering College, who are the training organisation that help them through their apprenticeships. And what was really interesting about them is that even though they've got a business of around 200 employees, it was only 2 years ago that they considered apprenticeships for the very first time. And they took on, at that point, they took on 16 apprentices at once. So they obviously had to develop a very good working relationship with their training provider. And this is Roy from Havering College here, and Adam having a meeting around the apprenticeships. And they had to develop a really strong working relationship. And they decided at that point to take on apprentices that had gone through A-levels. And so they weren't taking on the 16 to 18-year-old bracket, they were taking on older apprentices, and they were teaching them at NVQ level 3 and upwards. And once those apprentices had completed those qualifications, if they were successful, they were then put through the foundation insurance test, so that many of these apprentices have gone on to now quite moving towards more senior levels in the business. One of the things that's always stayed with me from the interviews that I did with Adam was that he found that taking on apprentices in his business wasn't just about the apprentices coming in and developing a career. What it seemed to do was really help other people in the business step up. So those people that had been there a while and suddenly found, all these new starters arriving, had suddenly realised the kind of competition that was going to be out there for the roles in their business, and they had also, if you like, upped their game, and they'd also then started to get more of an interest in where their career was going in the business, because they didn't want to be overtaken, and they wanted to also for the business to address their own training needs. So he's found it to have a positive effect across all staff in the business. One thing that is quite significant about the business that he considers that in terms of apprenticeships, that the people that join the business, the sky's the limit, and he's quite keen for them to reach degree level and also, to get to master's level if they, have the commitment and are likely to be with the business for a long time. They consider it now to be a genuine and valuable route into employment, and as a business, they are now a very good success story when it comes to apprenticeships. Although Adam isn't able to join us today, he is an apprentice maker. He's in the Apprentice Makers community, and therefore if you're a business of around this size and you think it'd be really good to talk to them about how they manage such a large intake of apprentices in their business, feel free to contact him through the Apprentice Makers community and see if he's happy to share his experience with you. Okay, so I think we've reached an endpoint with our webinar. I'd like to thank both Lara and Daniel again for supporting us and giving up their time to speak. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to send them to me after the webinar. That's my email address there, sophie@apprenticemakers.org.uk. We've also got a Twitter account. Please follow us and please share future webinars and help us spread the word about Apprentice Makers. We'd love more businesses to get involved, and as we said, we'd love to share any good news when it comes to small businesses and apprenticeships. After this webinar, you'll receive a feedback form. It would be great if you could take a small amount of time just to fill it out. Let us know not only what you thought about this session, but how you'd like to see future webinars organised, what sectors you think would be good to cover, what subjects would be good to cover, and anything else really that's relevant to anything that you've seen covered today. And I think that comes in around sort of an hour after the webinar. So yeah, just feel free to fill it out or just contact me as well. You can do that too. So without further ado, I'd like to thank Lara and Daniel again and say goodbye for now. Bye everyone. Thank you for getting involved.